start with a serial DAT. We have our Arduino patch that we did together, and that is sending out a serial message at 9600 right now. And we need to first set the port on this to be your USB modem, or if you have a PC, it'll be like COM something. Yeah, USB modem. And you should see all of your data there.
Cute.
Yeah. And now we just need to isolate that data. Now the first thing that's a little weird, and it looks like it's fine, but I believe that down the road it's going to mess you up, is that the print line, the print ln on your Arduino is sends both a new line character and a carriage return character. It sends both of those things. And TouchDesigner really only wants the new line character, and the carriage return character will mess up and make the serial output when it's not supposed to. So we want to change the code slightly to just do that. Where did my code go? There it is. So all you have to do is here on where you're serial printing. Why can't I change? Why can't I close this? I'm trying to close these ones I'm not using, and it won't let me. There we go. Okay, great. Right here, instead of saying print line, change this to just print, and then make one more serial print, and put open parenthesis, single quote, I believe, \n, single quote. It should turn blue, and end parenthesis, and then a semicolon. Now go back into, before you try to upload it, go back into TouchDesigner and turn off the active, because you can only have one thing communicate with your serial port at a time. And then go back into your Arduino and upload that code. And this should actually, if you open your serial monitor in Arduino, you don't have to, guys, but if you did, it actually comes out the same. It prints the same kind of messages to your serial monitor. But this way it gets rid of that carriage return ASCII 13 and only sends the ASCII 10, which is what TouchDesigner wants to see. So then go back into TouchDesigner and turn your active back on. You now see this thing that says message at the top and all of your values. Okay, so now we want to, what this does is, yeah. What this does is it scrolls through those values and puts them in several different cells on this serial. We only want the most recent values, so really we only want the stuff that's in row 1. So we can use a select DAT to get that out. Select, and on your select, you want to turn include first row off. And on select rows, you can say by index, and your start row is 1, and your end row is 1. There. So I believe for whatever reason it had that as a Python code. Change that to you hit the gray box to change it to a constant and change the end row to 1. And so then you just have the most recent value on there. And go ahead and press your button and you should see that last one go from 0 to 1, and it's 1 when you press it and it's 0 when you don't. Okay. Yes, we'll do that in a second. All right, now we want to you can see that it's outputting all of these in a single row, in a single cell, all three values in a single cell, when really we want them to be in three different cells on the data table. So we can change that with a convert dat. And where it says how up here, change this, sorry, no. You leave it to table because we want to change this and say split cells at, and add just a space. And then it will split the cells wherever there's an empty space. So get rid of where it said split cells at \t. Change that, just delete that and put a single space in it and then click off. And now you should have columns 0, 1, and 2 with your three values in it. Okay? Now we're going to want to put this into a chop. So we can use a dat2 chop. So click on chop, and then the only two options are dat2 and info. We want dat2. Yes, dat2. Couldn't resist. All right. Yeah. Isn't that funny? Okay, what did I do here? Oh, change here where it says first column is names. Change that to is values, right? No, darn it. That's not right. Hold on. Select rows, no. All rows is fine. All columns. Channel per row. Channel per column. Change it to channel per column. There we go. That's what we want. So output, we're having one channel per column because each one of these columns is a different channel. And saying the first, where it says first column is names, change that to first column is values so that you get all three channels. What do you see? So then you have down here where it says first column is the very last thing.
Okay, so values.
Change that to values as well because we are not using any names. Okay, so now we're going to use these values. You know, and we have three different values here. I got my potentiometer. I have, that goes from 0 to 1023. I have an LDR, which all of you have slightly different ranges, but mine tends to go from like 96 down to like 15. Some of yours goes from 100 to 0. Some of yours goes from 900 to 800. But you all have about 100 steps of range, which is fine. We just adjust the scaling of it to make it work for you. And we're going to use these values to mess with our favorite blobby sphere. Everybody loves the blobby sphere, right? All right, so let's make a sphere first. So make a SOP, a sphere SOP. Okay. And then we're going to put coming out of the sphere SOP, we're going to put that through some SOP noise. Right? And so then it makes the SOP noise. Then to make this noise look better, we need to recalculate the normals because right now you just have this single hotspot and it doesn't look particularly 3D. If we change here to attribute create and recalculate normals, compute normals on, then it looks way better. Okay, now we need to render this. And what do we need to render things? Yeah, light, geometry, and camera, right? Lights, camera, and action. So comp, we need geometry. We need a light. And we need a camera and a render. Actually, don't go ahead. If you put the render, go ahead and delete it for a minute. And I want to show you something really cool about geometry that I learned a couple weeks ago. Before, how did we get the sphere into the geometry? A select. Or we would have all this shit inside of the geometry component, right? This is so cool. Watch this. All right, delete your geometry component. Right-click on the output of your attribute create. And now click on components and click on geometry. Boom. It does it for you automatically. And what it does is it puts an input in there for you and an output. So that's like a major time saver. All right, so you all have this. So to get this, if you didn't see what I did, I deleted the geometry component, then I right-clicked on the attribute create, and I selected geometry component. And then it adds one there. Okay? Now we need a render. So that's a top render. And it should connect those three lines to all three objects, right? And now if you open your perform mode, nope, you won't see anything. Why? I have to push the blue thing. So I hit the perform mode, I still don't see anything. Why? Scott, do you know why? You're close. It's the out on the render. You have to send it out of the project 1 container that I always forget is there to be able to be rendered. So just on the output of this, make an out render. An out top. And then if I go into perform mode, I'll see it. Okay? Cool. Now we need to isolate these channels and scale them independently and do some cool stuff as far as like smoothing them out and stuff like that, because Gabe wanted them smoother. All right, so there is something about this that I noticed, that you sometimes get this glitchiness. You see that, where it just glitches across? I still haven't figured out a really good method of eliminating that. It has to do with missing the new line character. And so when TouchDesigner misses the new line character, then all of a sudden it has a line that's 6 items long instead of 3 items long. And so all of a sudden your convert gets to have cells 1, 2, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So I'm sure there's something I could probably figure out if I thought about it for a long time, how to filter that out. Maybe something in the Arduino coding. But for now, let's just live with it. It's not that big a deal, especially if you filter your data coming in, which you usually want to do. Okay, so, also what tends to help with this is to speed up the communication speed. Let's go back. Let's turn off, before doing anything, turn off your serial. So go to your serial DAT and turn the active to off. Okay, then go into your Arduino code, and where it says serial begin 9600, we're going to change that to 115200. 115200, which is the fastest that the Arduino can communicate. And actually, we didn't put any. Let's put a delay at the very end of this of like 5 milliseconds to help kind of smooth it out a little bit. Put delay 5. Stability. Delay for stability. Okay. And go ahead and upload that to your Arduino. Okay. Now go into your serial, change the baud rate here from 9600 to 115200. Okay, and then make sure you still have your USB modem or your COM port selected, and then turn the active back on. And you should see your data coming in. Yes? Cool. Just so you know, we don't have to do this right now, and we're not going to, but if you wanted to go back and look at it in your serial monitor in Arduino IDE, the default speed for your serial monitor is 9600, but there's a little like thing down at the bottom where you can change that to 115200. And it will be all scrambled characters unless you have it on the right speed that you have programmed. Okay? Okay, so to isolate this, we have our DAT2, and now we want to, actually before isolating, we're going to filter this slightly. So right click on the output and send it to a filter, chop, and this will smooth out some of those glitches, and it'll also it also adds latency between data reads. It makes one value slide from one value to another value. So the one thing you will notice, push your button, and see now instead of getting a 0 to 1, you get like a 1 0 and 0 1. You're not getting that?
Oh, I have to change it. Sorry. The filter.
Yeah. You have a filter chop?
No, you don't have filter. I'll just file out.
You're saving random files all over your computer. Your hard drive is filling up. Delete it quick. No, I don't think that would happen. I hope that's not happening.
No.
Okay. All right. So we're actually, when we use the button, we're gonna split off from this before the filter. But for now, let's leave it because we're gonna do the button last. We're gonna start with using the potentiometer to change the speed of how fast this blobby sphere blobs. And we're going to use the LDR to change the intensity of the blobbiness. I don't have really good words to describe a blobby sphere, you know? There are no words. All right. So what do? We use a select, the same way we did in the select DAT to separate out values. We're going to do the same thing with the select chop to select out chop values. So select. Okay, now on the channel names here, you can either type them in and say chan1, but you can easier just click on this arrow on the side and select chan1. And make another one, right click on the output of this and do another select. Oh, that does it that way. Is it shift right click and do another select? No, that didn't do it either. What is it? Control?
Yeah.
The control.
Controls, Command C, Command V.
No, there's a way to make it split out. If we can't, we'll just clip the cord. Select. Oh, just a copy paste? There we go. Okay, copy paste. That's the best way to do it. Thank you. I think that's what you were trying to tell me too, right?
Yes.
Okay, yeah. Okay, great. I'll give credit to both of you. All right, so on this one, change this to chan2. Oh, and then by default, it wants to do chan1 and chan2, so just delete out where it says chan1, and then you'll have chan2. Okay. Now we want to,
I don't know about you guys, but my channel
your chan1 has been changed to message?
My chan 0 rather has been renamed to message. It's probably a weird piece of
Maybe. Is it that you have?
Yeah, it's fine. It still works.
I think where you have what your problem is somewhere on the select. You have this thing saying message here. Do you have on your select? Do you have index starting at row index 1 and ending at 1, or do you have 0?
No, 1 and 1.
Okay, whatever.
Yeah.
All right, great. So what we want to do now is adjust these values, scale these values for something that makes sense. And on the potentiometer, we should have values that are pretty close to each other's. But everybody had slightly different LDR values, so we'll have to try to figure out which is best for that. So look at what your select 2, your LDR is reading, and put your finger over your LDR and see where it's going to. Mine's going from like 20 something to about 97. Is that what you guys have? You guys each have something different, right?
Mine goes from like 19 to 120.
And so yours goes from like 19 to 120. Okay, that's fine. What we're going to do is right-click on the output of that and go to Math. And now click on Range. And I'm going to put what my values are. So when I put my finger over it, it goes down to 19. So I'm going to say from 19. Do whatever your low value is when you put your finger over it. And then whatever your high value is when your finger is not on it, put that at the high value. Okay? And then the second one, we can all do the same thing. Have this go to 0 to 2. Okay? So whatever your range is when you put your finger over it and when your finger is not on it, and then the output range on 0 to 2. Okay? And then also, we want this to always be positive, even if somehow it gets darker than it was before.
Mm-hmm.
So under Op, choose, where is it? Channel pre-op, channel post-op positive. So it'll make it positive no matter what. And so now the output of this, you can see, is mine goes down to like 0.02 when my finger is over it, or 0.002. And then when I let go, it goes up to almost 2. And yours should do about that same range of values. Are you guys with me on that? Cool. All right, now we're going to use that for for how blobby, the intensity of the blobbiness. So let's send it to a null chop. And now let's go over down to our noise. And on amplitude, change this to, let's see. Yeah, change that. We're gonna have this, instead of being a constant, push the plus button and change it to Python expression, and put in op. What is it? Null something, null 1. Op single quote null 1. End quote. End parenthesis. Open bracket. Remember to point to a channel. And then the channel name. So mine is Chan1. Shay's is name or something. Message. Okay. And so then it should get a little bit blobbier. A little bit crazier. And if you put your finger over the sensor, it should turn back into a sphere. And when you take your finger off the sensor, it gets crazy. Yeah? Such power. All right. And actually, I think that this is too blobby. So what I'm going to do on my math, I'm going to change the to range. No, I'm going to change the from range I'm going to turn this up from 19 to 100. I'm going to make it from 19 to 120, and that should calm it down a little bit. You guys can change yours too, however makes sense. Yeah. What do you have? You're not getting anything? Is anything coming in? Nothing's coming in. All right, so do you have your serial monitor open in Arduino? No, you don't want it open. You want to make sure it's closed. Now go back into your TouchDesigner and go over to the serial object. It's over there. That serial. Turn the active off, back on again. See if that starts it. Yeah, so you lost connection somehow. So if you lose connection, which could happen if you had some glitch or something got unplugged or you accidentally shorted something on your Arduino board or some other program tried to communicate with your Arduino, you can reestablish connection by turning off the active on your serial chop and then turning it back on. That's how you can stop the connection and then restart the connection. Okay, so actually, I'm going to change this on my 2 range, actually. I'm going to put this back to where it was at about 100, and I'm going to change this from 0 to 2 to 0 to 1.5 because I just think it's too blobby. Yeah. Because what we can do is you can still make it drive harder by putting a flashlight on it. Then it will go crazy. Right? So maybe I even go 0 to 1 point. Maybe let's try 0 to 1. That looks pretty good. Yeah, I think I like that. So I changed mine to 0 to 1. You can do it whatever you want to do. And your flashlight should still make it go crazy, like ridiculously crazy. Do I have a period? Let's see. What do I have for period? Seed 1, period 1, harmonics, roughness 0.5. That's basically what I have. Okay, great. So now what we want to do is we're going to use the other value to adjust the speed of this blobbiness. And this is something that took me a minute to figure out how to do. But how do we, when we're using noise, we've used noise in a couple different ways. We've used noise in chops. And it either gives you static noise or you go onto the common and you turn on time slice and then it gives you a fluctuating value. What's the other type of noise that we've used? We've used noise in tops before. And also it gives you a static noise, but it doesn't have a time slice thing. How did we animate that noise?
It became like a thin bar.
Yeah, how did we do that? It was in transform, and we made the, was it transform? Translate Z, yeah, where's translate Z? Yeah, exactly, thank you. So in translate Z, we would turn this to an expression on the Z, and we would say abs time dot frame, or actually that's way too fast. We'd say dot seconds. Yeah. So the paradigm we're going to use to affect the noise on the SOPs is similar to this, where we're changing the rate that we're translating through this noise. So down here, under transform, you can see that by default they have an expression here that is translating through this thing at abs time dot seconds. So what do you think I could do to adjust the speed here based on the potentiometer? Anybody guess? Anybody have a guess? if I was going to take the value coming out of the potentiometer and use it to affect how fast this is going through, translating through the noise, what's your first idea of how to do that?
You mean this?
Let me show you how one way we might do it with this. So on this we have noise abstime.seconds. If I wanted it to be half as fast, I could say abstime.seconds times 0.5, and it's half as fast. I could say 0.25, and it would be a quarter as fast. So what do you think we could do on this noise, on this abstime.seconds? If I said times 0.25, it goes a lot slower, right? So, yeah, go ahead.
Can you just say times math?
Yeah, well, we haven't created a math 2, but yeah, you're on the right track. We should create a math 2 first. Let's make a math 2. A math coming out of the other channel. And this one, we want to scale. Our range should be the same on this one, and it's 0 to 1024. And we're going to scale that to a range of, let's say, 0 to 3. And so now we'll have, when you go all the way down, it should go down to 0. When you go all the way up, it should go to 3 or 2.997 or something like that. And so you would think that you could just multiply by that value and it would give you good results. And I was so stumped when that didn't work. But let's go ahead and see what it does. So say, let's send it to a null first, just for best practices, and then point to the null. So multiply by op, open parenthesis, single quote, null 2, single quote, close parenthesis, open bracket, chan 2, single quote, chan 2, single quote, close bracket. And it's like time is like keeps going forwards and backwards and forwards and backwards. And like it works if you put it all the way down to 0. It'll work. Sometimes it'll stop and then sometimes it'll glitch out. And if you turn it fast, it goes just nuts so crazy. And then sometimes you can see what it's actually happening, where every time the value fluctuates a little bit, so like it's like 2.97 and then it goes to 2.96, it goes backwards in time. And the reason why is it's taking the current value and multiplying it by a value that's fluctuating. And every time you multiply it by something less than you multiplied it before, it makes that current time index go down. So like look at the translate here. It's going 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And sometimes it'll go back the other way. And especially it's just going so fast it's hard to see. And that's what's causing it to fluctuate. And so what we want to do is, instead of multiplying by abs time, we want to use this value to create our own time. And there's an object that does that for you. And it took me a while to figure it out, but it's such a simple thing once you wrap your head around it. And it's called speed, because that's what we're doing. We want to use this as a speed control. So there is an object in, I think it's a chop, called speed. And it says, if you hover over it, it says converts speed, units per second, to distance, units, over a time range. More generally, it'll give you a rate, the chop input, and outputs a cumulative value, meaning it will always count up. It will never count down. Every time our multiplying is slightly changing, it's causing the result to go down, and we don't ever want it to go down. So we want to use this speed instead. And so let's see, where did I put the speed in my notes? So whatever, it doesn't matter. Coming out of the null, patch into the input of the speed. And you can see then it creates a number that always counts up. And now instead of creating a math object, a math operation where I'm multiplying seconds by the chan2, just point to the speed operator. So that's going to be called, instead of null2, that's going to be called speed1. Not speed2, speed1. And now it doesn't go backwards, and it's controlled by the speed, and you should be able to slow it down to nothing if you want. Cool? Is that working? Cool. We have 10 minutes, which is just enough time to add the last function to this. We're going to add the battery. So now we have the two main functions of this, which is I can adjust the speed of the blobbiness with the potentiometer, and I can put my finger over the sensor and make it calm down. Or I can shine a flashlight in it and make it go crazy. So we need to do something with the button now. And we want to actually split out the button before it hits the filter, because we don't want this filtered button. We don't want it to slide up to 1 and slide back down to 0. So make another select coming out of this DAT2. Actually, here, I'll just copy and paste this select. And I'll disconnect this and connect it to here. And then change this select from chan2 to chan3. There we go. And so now we have a 0, 1, and it doesn't slide. Okay. And we're going to use this to create color for this blob. And what we're going to do is we're going to use a chop exec. When this goes 1, it executes the chop exec and creates 3 random numbers to populate a color, RGB color. So let's create a chop execute dat. Chop execute. And when it's asking what chop, go ahead and just hover over the select for and send it to, drag the select for and drag it onto the chop exec so that it's looking at that objects as its input. And then we want to turn off on value change, and we want to turn on from off to on. So it'll execute code when this gets a 1. Okay. Let me show you something. It's probably, and I haven't done this before, but I think I should have done it before. And that is, you can just delete the functions on this that you're not going to use instead of leaving them blank. Let's just get rid of them. We're not going to be using them. And it will just make it easier to tell what the hell's going on in here, right? All right, so for defining on off to on, we want to, yeah, that's right. Okay, so we're going to create a constant. So let's go ahead and create the constant first. Make a constant chop. And we're going to use that constant chop to hold the colors. And we're going to want 3 channels in this constant chop. So to add channels, all you have to do is name them down here underneath. Chan2. Actually, instead of using Chan 1, 2, and 3, let's use R, G, and B. So name the top one R, the middle one G, and the bottom one B. Right? All right, so we're going to use this to send 3 different values to this constant chop. So here we're going to say op, tab over, op, open parenthesis, single quote, constant 1, end quote, end parenthesis, dot par dot value 0. This should seem familiar. We've done this before, especially in the slot machine. We did it 100 times. And then random. To create a random, this is a little bit weird. This is a TouchDesigner one. We have looked at this at least once, I know. It's TDU, which stands for TouchDesigner Utilities. It's a family of functions. .rand, and then you have to give it a seed. And to make sure, if you gave all 3 ones the same seed, they would give you the same random number, and you would end up with gray because your R, your G, and your B would all be the same. So we're going to use abstime.frame to give us different seeds for each one. Abstime.frame.
That's in brackets.
It's in parentheses. So there's that one. And then, yeah. Then we say op constant. Actually, here, just copy the last line and paste it again underneath. Copy and paste, and now change it from value 0 to value 1. And if I just left it abstime.frame, it would be the same number. So I'm going to say +1. And then on the third one, paste again. And now change this to from value 0 to value 2. And abstime.frame +2. That way I get 3 different random numbers every time. And click off. And now when you hit the button, you should get 3 different random numbers in your constant. And every time I click it, I get 3 different random numbers in my constant one. Y'all have that? Cool. Now, how would we get this to a color and apply the color to the SOP? Anybody remember? Fong. On the nose. Good job. All right. So, yeah, we send it to a Fong. So, a Fong material. And what do we do on the RGB? On the diffuse color, we point to the 3 channels of this constant. So click on expression, op dash constant 1, end quote, end parenthesis, open bracket, R, single quote, R, single quote, close bracket. Then you can copy this and, whoops, oh no, I have to type it again now.
You export the chop.
You can, yeah, you can. Let's see. How do you do that again? Let's see. Let's try that. Oh yeah, you can. You can just drag this over here and say relative chop reference. Ha! Good job. You're kicking my butt today. All right. So drag here and say relative chop reference to each one. Relative chop reference. Boom. Now, every time I push this, I get a different color. Now, how do I apply the color to the blob? Material SOP down here in your chain before the geometry, after the attribute create. Let's add an output here, material, and you can drag your Fong onto the material, and there you got it. Every time you click it, you get a different color. And that's cool, but you know what would be cooler is if they like faded from one color to another color. And that's not that hard. All we have to do is instead of pointing directly to this constant, we put another filter chop here. And now every time I push this, those, you see those, they go to each other. And now we point to those filter channels instead of the constant channels. So let's do that relative export again. Relative chop reference.
It's
relative chop reference. I know there's a lot of really cool things about TouchDesigner that are really hard to do in Max. Just doing a blobby sphere would be like impossible in Max. Because when you try to apply noise to a 3D object in Max, all the vertices split apart. And like, there's no good way to keep them glued together. I'd never understood that. And now, every time I push it, I get a nice fade to a different color. And I still have the ability to make it calm down, to speed it up, to slow it down. Yeah? Yeah. Cool. All right. We're at time. And I realized I didn't really figure out what homework was supposed to do because I was so far behind on trying to get the outputs to work. Let me think. Probably I'll just give you guys the week because I'm sure you're all super busy. Yeah. So no homework for next time as long as you have this working. What we're going to do next week is yeah. So yeah, let's talk about that really quick. That was what I was about to look at. So for next week was supposed to be user choice. What would you want me to cover? I think we're going to probably end up using the entire class just to do outputs of Arduino into, out of TouchDesigner into Arduino. I think I'll do something with some servo motors because those are cool, and I have a couple of them, and you have one already, so that's great. And we'll also turn on this other lamp that we haven't used yet from a button inside of Arduino. The other thing we might be able to do is we could have something with audio where either the audio makes the light turn on and off based on how loud you are, like a VU meter. We could actually do that with the servo motor too and make it be like a VU meter needle. Yeah, so there's some various possibilities. Then we have, after we have 2 classes left. We have next week and then the following week, which we'll talk about next week, what we want to do the following week on May 1st. I just want to check in with you guys. Are you guys available the week after that to do your final presentations of your final projects? Because then we could get an extra week. You guys could have an extra week to do your final project, and we could have an extra week of instruction on 5/1 instead of presenting your projects. So are you all available at this class time on, what's the date? 5/8, I believe. Do any of you have mid-res reviews or anything like that? No? Okay, great. Let's do it here in the Media Lab. Your final presentations will be on 5/8. So let me just let you know what's coming up. So you're going to, for the final project, you're gonna show your final project, and have everybody's emailed me with their final projects? Yeah. Have I not emailed anybody back? Okay, because you were late in submitting your thing, and I just didn't get to you. Okay, I will email you either today or tomorrow about that. Okay, I think I emailed everybody else. So be sure that you can demonstrate your working patch, that it works 100%, and it needs to work, and you need to do your final if you want to pass the class. And give a 5-minute or more, there's not that many of us, overview of how it works. And I really want you to explain how it works. And if I ask you questions about how it works, I want you to be able to answer those questions. I need to make sure you're not just grabbing somebody's code from the internet and displaying it as a final project, right? So if you do use code from the internet, you better break it apart enough that you know exactly how it works, okay? And the other thing is, I'm not really counting late work as late as long as it's all on your blog. So I am going to use your blogs at the end of the semester to grade whether you did assignments. So your homework for next week or the end of the semester is to make sure you've done all your homework. And if you haven't, go back and do it. And if you're like completely stumped because it's been a million years, then schedule some time with me and I can help you figure out what you need to do. I'm not going to walk you through and do it for you, but I can like remind you about what you need to do and that kind of thing.
I have
Okay?
a question about
Yeah.
the slot machine in relation to homework. So
Mhm.
I posted 2 things on my blog for the slot machine, but I know there's probably things in between. Do you want to see those in between steps? Or
Were there in between things on the assignment? Yeah. Just give me, I'll grade you on the slot machine as a final thing. So like make sure your best version of your slot machine is on your blog, and that you email me your best version. Or you don't have to necessarily email me as long as there's a way for me to download it from your blog or something. If there's not, make sure you actually email it to me so I can actually have the file and look at the file. And then, on your blog, you want to make sure that you have videos of how it works, because sometimes it doesn't work right on my computer and it works fine on yours. So as long as I see a video of it working great on your computer, then that's a good thing, right? Yeah. So your best version of that, and if you don't end up getting all of the functions to work, I'll just ding you a little bit on whatever you're missing. But I'd really like you to at least have complex payout, sound effects, the spinning wheels, and some method that says you don't have any money. If you don't have the buttons to add money, that's not as big a deal. But if you have, if you run out of money and there's no way to play it, then you have to have something to add money, right? So like mainly like the bare minimum is you have to have a complex payout, 3 wheels that spin and tells you how much money you win, right? The next level up is to add something that doesn't let you play. If you don't have any money. And then obviously you'd probably want a few buttons to add money to your bank, right? And you should easily be able to add sound effects to this. That shouldn't be, we went over that in class. So you don't have to, you can use my sound effects, that's fine. If you want to do your own sound effects, that's great. Okay, any questions? Cool.